How's it going, y'all? It's Frank Payne with another round of Loud and Unfiltered, and today we're going to take a trip back to 2014. Got another flashback interview for you. This time we'll be talking to Michael Lardie of Great White. Yeah, Great White, you know them as one of the big powerhouses out of the 80s. We'll talk about his kind of interpretation of where they fit in various music eras. Here's a hint. He says the 70s. Yeah, we'll also talk about how music gets passed down through the generations. We're going to talk about their rock cruises, the bands that influenced them at such a young age, being a part of a benefit album and covering a Kiss tune, helping those with cancer and more. Just such a really laid back and grounded person. Michael Lardie of Great White. Here's a flashback interview from 2014 on Loud and Unfiltered.
We've always tried to write songs that made us feel something, and hopefully, at the end of the day, when you put it out into the world, when people respond to it, I mean, I think it's like the greatest compliment you could possibly get as a musician, songwriter. And one of the other cool things too is, when you play a festival, you're starting to see a lot of our fans that came from that era bring their kids, and they're singing the lyrics to Rock Me. I mean, not just the chorus, the verses.
Wow.
So they're passing the music down, and that's an amazing compliment.
Hey, now you really did it right if the kids are singing the lyrics to Wasted Rock Ranger.
That's the distinction, albeit somewhat dubious perhaps, but hey,
and that was actually, I was going to ask you about that because, since Great White's been around for so long, the people that were listening back when you guys were, back in the 80s and, and such and into the 90s, these are all people like myself that are having kids that, the kids are, around the age to where you can at least take them to a festival like you just mentioned and everything. It's got to be, man, that's just the neatest thing to see kids kind of grab hold of the same music that the parents grew up on.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things I've seen of late, I was in New York City not too long ago, and I saw this 12-year-old kid walking down the street with a shirt on that said bass and drums, and it was a picture of Paul and Ringo, and I'm like, now that's cool, that it gets transferred down, and that if you're lucky enough, being a musician and a songwriter, that someday your music can continue on into generation after generation. And it really is, one of the things that you subconsciously hope for. You don't say it out loud too often, but when you see it happening, it is such a treat. And to meet them in meet and greets and such, the fact that they get the music and that it lasts. I mean, classic rock, for whatever it is about that intangible thing you can put your finger on or you can't put your finger on.
Right.
It's a music that seems to last.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right.
And we're lucky to be, playing that kind of music.
Well, you just mentioned, and for those just now tuning in, I'm on the phone with Michael Lardie from Great White, or, let's get a little redundant here, the Great White. Hey, you just mentioned Paul and Ringo, obviously of the Beatles and everything. Around right around the same time, we had other greats like the Stones, and then of course you've got bands like Led Zeppelin, Judas Priest, and Sabbath, and everything. Who as far as that music that relates and that lasts a lifetime, which are your favorites?
Well, it was the Beatles on its album when I was 5 years old that made me want to be a musician. I mean, my parents were actually grooming me to be a doctor already at that age. I could read, so they gave me medical encyclopedias and, all kinds of, tips to, hey, you're going in this direction. And I saw the Beatles on its album and I was done. I turned around and said to them, that's what I'm going to be doing. And they pat you on the head and say, oh, isn't that cute, But when I'm coming home at midnight when I'm 15 going, man, it was amazing. I got to work in a nightclub and I get to sing and I got paid for it, and they're like, oh God, he's really serious about it.
My dad thought I was going to be a doctor just because I had messy handwriting. Then he realized I was too stupid to go in that field, so we chose radio.
Well, I was one of the really lucky ones. My dad sat me down when I was 15, like we were talking a bit ago there.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you can have a career, or you can have a brilliant moment for about 5 years, but if you decide to do the drugs and drink a lot, then you'll probably have the shorter of the two. So if you don't do that, then you're going to stay focused and you're going to be able to have a career for 35, 40 years. So I thought, that makes a lot of sense. I think I'll go that way. And I was one of the few that lived through the 80s without being that guy, that used the chemicals or the alcohol. And that's how I've retained my memory. In fact, they call me the Rain Man. I can pull dates out of my head from 1989 or whatever. And I don't know. I always believed that there was no high that was any more intense than performing in front of people, and that's what's kept me focused and able to do this for so long. And now, we have so much fun even after 30 years, doing this, that we're still at that point where, people ask you, how much longer do you think you do this? I go, I don't have a ceiling on it.
Yeah. See, that's the way to set it, too, because, if you actually set a kind of a time limit on, say, your quote-unquote retirement, then it almost feels constricting and like the walls are closing in. Right now, it's, like your big Monsters of Rock cruise, you're out on a big sea and there are no walls. Man, you can just go as far as you possibly want.
Yeah, then that was a blast to do those. We did those 2 years in a row. We're taking a break this next year, and probably back the year after that. But those kinds of shows, when you see your fans from, as far back as 86 or 87, on the high seas with you, rocking out, it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like old home week, because you've seen them grow,
right.
They've seen you grow, and it's just, you look at each other with that all-knowing, wow, we're still doing this. Isn't this amazing?
That's so cool. That is so cool. I'm on the phone with Michael Lardie of Great White, and we're talking about kind of reflecting on the years past, and and the impact that Great White has not only had on me personally, but rock and roll history. But let's talk current. It's because you guys, like you just mentioned, you haven't set a ceiling on your career and everything. You guys are continuing to trudge forward, and you're not like one of those bands that are like, screw it, man, we're just going to be a nostalgia band and go out and tour on our greatest hits. You're putting out new music. A year and a half back, you had Elation come out. It's, so putting out new music, that's got to, energize you and kind of, give you that renewed feeling of youth as well, right?
Yeah, and the focus of doing records back in the day still, is with us today. The reason for doing it is you want to keep becoming a better songwriter. You want to become a better performer. You want to, create something that keeps it fresh for you, which in turn keeps it fresh for your fans.
Right.
Because, they believe, through you putting out new music, that you still take your career very seriously, and that's a big part of, what you do as an artist, that you can continue to create. Yeah, I can't imagine us becoming one of those greatest hits band. I think we've all pretty much sat around in a circle, said, if it gets to that, it's time to call it a day.
Speaking of your new music and everything, how do you, when you're going out on the road, how do you balance out the new stuff with the old stuff? Is it something that you just play it by ear, and each night you prepare a new set list each night, or how does that work out with a band like Great White?
Well, it is difficult to field a set for an hour and a half out of 12 studio albums. I won't lie to you about that. You try to cover the history of the band to a certain extent, but obviously there were really big records with Once Bitten, Twice Shy and Hooked. So you do have to cover and play those songs, because if I went to see any band and they weren't playing a number of their most popular songs, I might have a little difficulty with that. As far as the new material goes, what we try to do is lay in maybe a couple to give people a taste of what it's about. And for us, we've been rotating in and out 7 songs from the 12 that are on Elation, which is unusual.
Wow.
Normally, historically what's happened is you play whatever song gets released at radio, and that's pretty much all you ever play from a new album. Well, we all set out to say, okay, the business is different these days, whereas, you don't get a bunch of, support to go out and really slam a single home. So you get a chance to go a little deeper in the record. And we've played more from Elation live than we've ever played from any record. So that's pretty cool for us as well.
It's really, really cool to see legendary bands like yourself put out music that, that really makes an impact, and you guys continue to stay relevant. I mean, it's what kind of pisses me off with bands, say like Great White. You guys like really, you really got mega huge in the height of the hair metal era, and people kind of lump you in with, they're a hair metal band. I'm like, no, listen to the band. They're like a blues-based band, and, kind of like what Zeppelin was. It's, you obviously have influences from many different areas, but, I mean, you hear a lot of the blues, the hard rock and blues in your type of music and everything. So that's, it's really cool to see you guys carry that torch and to continue on with that style of music that's really paved the way for so many bands.
Yeah, it always cracked me up when you look back at it and you say, yeah, that was an 80s band. If anything, we're really more of a 70s band.
Yeah.
In that we, the sound of the music, the approach, the dynamic, the blues riffs, all the thing about what we are. I think we'd slot in better with Zeppelin or Humble Pie than we would say Poison or any of the bands from our era. We were just a 70s band that gained popularity in the 80s.
We were kind of talking about a little bit about the blues influence and everything. We recently lost one of the greatest, actually the greatest slide guitarist ever, and legendary bluesman and guitarist Johnny Winter. Did you ever have a chance, being a guitarist yourself? Do you ever have a chance to play with him?
Not to play with him. I saw him 3 or 4 times over the years, and the last time I saw him was, quite a long time ago. I think it was 1990 at the Palace in Hollywood. Coco Taylor opened up for him, but we got the chance to go backstage and sit with him in the dressing room and chat with him for a good half an hour. A sweet man, just one of those, his talent was just sent from some other planet. I mean, he just had this way of speaking through his guitar and that slide that is like no other, and will probably never be like another.
No.
And as far as the connection to Texas, I mean, he is one of the shining stars of the Lone Star State, man. I'm telling you.
Before we wrap things up, I've got to ask you, and this is really kind of been one that it's been stuck in the back of my mind for a while. But you covered the big Kiss hit "Beth" on on that tribute album, A World with Heroes. How'd you get involved in that project, and how did it come about that you chose the song or somebody chose it for you? What was that all about?
Well, actually, there's a gentleman that does an online magazine / interview palette called Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles. A gentleman named Mitch LaFawn, and his father passed of pancreatic cancer up in Montreal, and he was just so impressed and so blessed that the people that looked after his dad before he passed were so sweet to his father that he just felt like he wanted to give back something to the hospital, and created this idea for a benefit album. And Mitch is a huge Kiss fan. I mean, like, when I say huge, that's not even an appropriate word. He's just over-the-top fan. So, through doing interviews with many artists over time, he went through his roster of people that he knew or who has interviewed and reached out to the people to see if they were available to do it. And he well, for whatever reason, his idea was to reach out to me and ask me to do Beth.
That's cool.
I guess because he liked my piano playing, and I just had the opportunity to sit in my studio and just basically build the track and, play the keys and the bass and some guitar on there and sing it. And it was a great joy to do it for him. And the record's done so well, for, raising money for the hospital and bringing, the awareness of, I think anytime you do any kind of charity work, it brings the awareness of, that we do need to give back to, the scourge of what cancer is and help people out. So it was a great honor to even be asked. And one of the craziest things was for a couple of weeks in Japan, it was the number one downloaded tune. So,
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a little feather in my cap I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah. Hey, we're on the phone with Michael Lardie from Great White. I hope you have a fantastic day, and man, thank you so much for taking this time out to talk to us today.
Well, thank you for the interest as always, and it's always about the fact that the fans and people at radio have supported us through all these years and continue to do so. So we are blessed. So thank you very much.
Oh, that was a great one. 2014 is when I recorded that interview. Great White was just about to hit the road. About a year and a half prior to that, they had a new album out and more. And I just love the fact that we've got all these big 80s bands that are staying relevant today, and not only staying relevant, but doing huge tours and still doing big things. But as you heard in that interview, he says that they're more of a 70s band that got big in the 80s. Regardless, Great White, one of my favorites. And you heard us talk about their song Wasted Rock Ranger at the beginning. If you haven't heard it, you should. It should be the party anthem for everyone, including me, even though I don't drink anymore. I love that tune. Appreciate Michael Lardie for taking the time to talk to us. Hey, don't forget, you can find Loud and Unfiltered online at DaleJr.forPresident.com. We are in no way affiliated with Dale Earnhardt Jr. or his desire or potential desire to run for president. LoudandUnfiltered.com was already taken, so we went with the next best thing, DaleJr.forPresident.com. You can catch up with all the old episodes of the show, check out some merch, rock news, and so much more. DaleJr.forPresident.com. Go ahead and check that out. And when you're on all the podcasting platforms like right now, make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, ring that bell, leave a review, leave a comment. That stuff really does help. Not just me, but everyone in the podcasting and or social media world. So we really appreciate that. Hey, thanks for joining us on another episode of Loud and Unfiltered. Please remember, be a good human. Don't forget about that Diet Dr. Pepper and stay loud and unfiltered, y'all.